Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen gets busted stealing from our store, ends up leaving in handcuffs. After that, my future in-laws are buying my fiance a house, but they won't include my name on it. And after that, am I the jerk for deliberately embarrassing my father-in-law in front of his family? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to steal any shoes. But I've been needing a new pair for about the past 2 years. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen gets busted stealing from our store, ends up leaving in handcuffs. I, 22 female, work at a department store in a popular mall, and one of our regular shoppers is a woman who, for the sake of this story, we'll call Karen. Until this all went down, she would come in almost every day, and we all knew her by name. Unfortunately for us, she's far from being the nicest person. In fact, she's quite rude and always complained about everything. She's the typical type of Karen who thinks expired coupons should be honored and will always ask us to check the back for something she wants but can't find on the shelves, even though we're never able to find it in the back. We're really good about keeping all the stock we have on the floor as opposed to leaving it in the back like some places do. One day, Karen came in looking for a specific brand of shampoo that we had run out of. She asked me if we had any in the back, and I checked our inventory system to see if we had any on order. When I told her that we didn't have any in stock, she got upset and literally started yelling at me about how we always run out of things she wants. She even went as far as to suggest that we should order some just for her. I politely told her that we couldn't do that, and I apologized for the inconvenience, but she just stormed off without another word. Another time, Karen came in with a bunch of expired coupons and demanded that we honor them. I tried to explain to her that we couldn't accept them, but she kept insisting and causing a scene. Eventually, my manager had to step in and tell her that we couldn't accept the coupons. Karen was not happy about it and left in a huff, muttering under her breath. With the background out of the way, now on to the main story. One day, when something truly shocking happened, our opinion of this woman went from typical Karen to full-on criminal. We saw all of what I'm about to tell you on our camera footage. So one weekday afternoon when Karen came in, wearing her usual sour expression, she made a beeline for the shoe department and started browsing through them as she usually did. A few minutes later, she grabbed a pair of sneakers from the shelf and walked over to the nearest bench. She sat down and began to take off her old shoes, which she placed neatly in the box and placed it back on the shelf. She then just went about her business and checked out as usual, but wearing the new shoes instead of her old ones. Once we found the box of old shoes on the shelf, Loss Prevention went to work reviewing footage to find out who had done this. It took them a few days, but eventually they found the exact moment that Karen had done the deed. Because she was a regular who honestly spent a fortune with us, Manglement did not want to press charges at first. They were thinking it could have been a mistake and wanted to forget about it. But unfortunately for Karen, she was now on the watch list of our loss prevention officers, who stayed watching her on the cameras anytime they saw her in the store. It was only a matter of time until she tried the same thing again, but this time, it didn't work out as well for her. Our loss prevention guy sat there watching her on the live footage as she did the exact same thing again. This time, the officer quickly called for backup and they kept a close eye on Karen's location in the store. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Karen headed for the exit with her old shoes still in the box that she had put back on the shelf and the new shoes on her feet. Our loss prevention team quickly approached her and asked her about the shoes she had just attempted to steal. They showed her the footage of her taking the shoes and informed her that she had been caught on camera stealing. Karen tried to deny it at first, but when they showed her the footage, she finally admitted to the theft, along with some very colorful choices of words. Among her excuses were, "I spend more than 99% of your customers. You can't let me just have a simple pair of shoes as a thank you." Of course, the police were called, and Karen was held at the store until they arrived. She was arrested and charged with theft, which was a big shock to all of us who knew her as a regular shopper, considering how management loved her so much. After that day, Karen was banned from the store, and we never saw her again. Once she was no longer visiting the store, of course, we all made jokes about her and almost felt bad for her. For her to come to our store about every day and then just stop, we all wondered what she had spent her days doing once she got out of jail. Hopefully, she isn't just moving her shoe operations to another unsuspecting store. My future in-laws are buying my fiance a house, but won't include my name on it. My fiance, 27 female, and I, 29 male, grew up very differently. I was an immigrant who moved here when I was 6, and we were definitely struggling a lot. My parents worked extremely hard to provide for me and my siblings, and they always prioritized our education over everything. My dad always told me it was his dream to live in a house that he owned, since we'd always rented, but he couldn't save up enough since we were renting in expensive areas with good schools. Unfortunately, both of my parents passed before being able to realize that dream. My dad passed when I was 17, and my mom passed almost 3 years ago. My fiance grew up fairly wealthy, like private schools, designer clothes, 3 to 4 international vacations per year, flying first or business class the whole way. I was able to attend college thanks to student loans, scholarships, and part-time jobs, which delayed my graduation a bit, while her parents were able to fairly easily cover all of her expenses themselves. However, I'm the last person to say that my fiance hasn't earned everything she's gotten. She's an extremely intelligent person, and besides funding her education, her parents are in no way responsible for her accomplishments. My fiance and I met 6 years ago when we started working at the same company, in the same position at the same time after graduating from college. We hit it off almost immediately, and it didn't take long for us to start dating. Both of us still work at the company. However, I've progressed through the career ladder a bit more quickly than she has, and now I make just over twice what she does. I'll be the first to admit that this is completely undeserved, and I've benefited from a lot of luck, and it definitely wasn't fair to her since we work in a male-dominated field. Still, that has allowed me to aggressively attack my student loans, and once they were paid off, I put that into saving up for a down payment on a house as a way to fulfill my parents' dreams. I proposed about 6 months ago, and things have been going great so far. However, this past weekend, we were at her family's house when her parents told us that for a wedding present, they were going to give us a house. My fiance was overjoyed, and although I was also happy, I wanted to know the details as well. Pretty quickly, her parents told us that the house would be in her name only, and that they expected us to sign a prenup to protect any, and only, pre-marriage assets, just in case. I was insulted that they thought I was after their money at all, since I make more than she does anyway, and I ended up telling them that they can't call it a wedding present if they only give it to one person. I then told my fiance I refuse to live in a house that I don't own, and she knows exactly why. All 3 of them got very upset with me. So, am I the jerk? Edit. So I was requested to add some information that I included in the comments into my post, and I also just had a long conversation with my fiance and my in-laws, so I have a small update to share as well. Here's the info from the comments. The hilarious part of the whole prenup conversation was that they basically said that they expected the prenup to only cover premarital and inherited assets. They said they would absolutely refuse to accept any clauses that include future assets. So if I want to own a home where only my name is on the title, I have to purchase it before the marriage, and also make sure to never use any of my wife's money to pay the mortgage or anything. Apparently, they already had their lawyer write the whole thing up, but wanted to give me a heads up so I can retain my own lawyer to review it. I have a suspicion that any lawyer is going to think it's massively unfair just based on how they're describing it, and I'm assuming that they'll think I'll just get a cheap lawyer because of my upbringing. Admittedly, I don't know any better, so this is kind of difficult for me to determine what's fair and what isn't, but it doesn't seem fair to me. Besides that though, it's also just a personal thing. I want to live in a house that I own, not them, not my wife alone. I'm happy to live in a home that both my wife and I own, but not one that she owns on her own. I don't want someone else living in the house that I own. I want to live in it myself. I also should mention that currently, my fiance and I share our finances. She makes about $120K and I make about $250K. We split things according to income, so I pay around 2/3 and she pays around 1/3. Based on our conversations, my fiance and I both expected this arrangement to continue after marriage. As for the update, well, I'll start with the fiance's older sister, who's 29, calling me out of the blue a few hours ago, telling me that her parents did not ask her husband to sign a prenup before they got married. Both of my fiance's sisters and my fiance's brother-in-laws were at the dinner where her parents talked about the house, so they both heard the whole conversation. My fiance's sister thought I deserved to know. My fiance's brother-in-law comes from a well-off family as well, but I don't know how well-off or whether they're on the same level as my fiance's family or just upper middle class. Their wedding was pretty extravagant. My fiance's family is white and American, as is the brother-in-law. I am Pakistani. I don't believe her parents think less of me for this, but it seemed like this information was important according to the comments. Anyway, about 3 hours ago, my fiance finally came home. She had stayed at her parents' house because we had gotten into quite the argument. I was expecting her to continue the argument, but she actually came and apologized straight away. Apparently, her younger sister, who's 22, went off on her after I left her parents' house. She really laid into my fiance on how she was being inconsiderate because everyone knew how important owning my home was to me. She also said that her parents weren't treating me right or equally. That made my fiance see my side, as she said, but she was too embarrassed, which is why she didn't come home last night. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of my fiance's sister right now. She's never been one for nonsense, while my fiance is a bit of a people pleaser and definitely a daddy's girl, and she's kind of always hoping for her father's approval. My fiance has even said she knows that she needs to work through that before we get married. I'm going to buy her sister a cupcake. Then showed her the post, and she got pretty uncomfortable reading a lot of the comments, especially the ones saying that she doesn't care about me. She also got really uncomfortable when she read the comments about her parents. I explained to her how I was feeling like I was going into this as an unequal partner, and she absolutely agreed that it wasn't fair. She even said she was going to tell her parents that she was going to refuse to sign the prenup. I told her to slow down because she was going between extremes. I told her that we still needed to get the prenup because her family was already having difficulty accepting me and this was going to make it worse. However, I told her that under no circumstances was I signing anything her parents had a part in drafting and that we would each retain our own lawyers outside of her parents' influence and get something that is fair and equitable. She agreed. We then talked about the house, and she said she was going to tell her parents that she wasn't going to accept unless both of our names were on it. I told her to slow down again, and I got her to agree to me paying for a quarter of it. My initial proposal was to pay half, but she said that what I said about it being a wedding present, so it should be for both of us, was true. So we came to the agreement that we would each get half ownership of the house, with her parents paying for 75% of it and me using the money I've saved, plus a small mortgage for the other 25%. Both of our names will be on the title. We then called her parents together and told them our plan. They grumbled about it a bit initially, especially because her dad was still upset that I had been so ungrateful. But eventually, we were able to talk it through, and they agreed to the plan. I doubt this is the last I hear about this, but at least for now, it seems like the situation is mostly resolved. Not the jerk. Honestly, I don't think they're terrible for wanting to give a nice gift, but also ensure their investment goes to her in the event of a divorce. In addition, I'm sure prenups are much more common and less offensive in their world. That said, you've been dating for 6 years. They know you. They presumably know your background, home ownership goals, etc. Also, a potential solution or suggestion between the two of you, own 2 homes, plus get some sweet Airbnb income on one of them. You will have a much easier time saving up for the second while living in the first. ETA, just make sure your home is covered in the prenup too. Not the jerk. I wouldn't live in a house that was just owned by my wife and vice versa, and I 100% have a real-world example. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and when we bought our house, she had no income and the bank wanted to leave her off the mortgage. I 100% refused and even paid a smaller interest rate increase to make sure she knew it was both of ours home and not just mine. She was pretty quiet about it. My wife is a quiet person, but later broke down crying about how much it made her feel like an equal in our marriage, and that I did so without her saying a word. Stick to your guns. Either it's a gift for both of you under both your names, or just buy your own house and fulfill that lifelong dream. No jerks here. Leaning towards you're the jerk. You're being short-sighted, dumb, and prideful. You know what can happen when you don't have rent or a mortgage? Your savings shoot up ridiculously fast. They very quickly become a down payment for when you want to buy property. People with money know how to protect financial assets. If you love your fiancé, nothing changes when you sign the prenup. You're standing in your own way of being insulted. They're giving you a house to live in. Get your head out of your backside and see how much of a leg up that gives you as well. Your parents wanted a better life for you and worked extremely hard, probably took low-paying jobs to provide for your family because they did not let their pride come first. You're the jerk. Her parents are gifting her a house for her wedding. If you have no desire to take what is hers premaritally, you should have no issue signing a prenup. You should want her to be protected if you love her as much as you say you do. Refusing to live in the house unless they put your name on it shows what you're really about. Not sorry. You're the jerk. When I pass, I'll leave my house to my kid, not my kid and his spouse. I don't plan on him ending up homeless if he picks the wrong partner. Slight you're the jerk. Don't let the idea of a prenup get you all mad. If you two don't get divorced, it won't even matter. And if you do get divorced, then why should you get to keep 50% of this house's financial value anyway? Get your own lawyer. You can afford that now, right? Make sure the prenup is fair and limited in scope, then sign it and move on. This is a gift with very few strings attached. Take advantage of it and save your money for other things for your new family. The house will be yours, together in spirit. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his in-laws? Please let us know. Oh, how I can't stand rich people using things like prenups to protect their investments in case of a divorce. People don't even get divorced these days, and on the rare occasion that they do, it's not like they fight over money or anything like that. She's being facetious in case anyone can't tell. Am I the jerk for deliberately embarrassing my father-in-law in front of his family? I, male 36, am absolutely not what you would call a handy kind of guy. I can build an IKEA flat pack and I can follow a YouTube tutorial on how to declog my washing machine, but I don't have any, what my father-in-law, male 60, would call worthwhile skills. I have to give him the credit that he's due and say he's very knowledgeable about plumbing, joinery, and electrics. He has often helped me and my wife with matters in our home, leaky pipe, some plastering work, etc., and we've always been grateful and appreciative of his efforts. My skills are more IT-based. I work in this field for a living, which means I often get saddled with the old chestnuts such as, "Can you fix the printer?" or "The internet isn't working." To me, these are simple issues to fix, but he's very IT illiterate. I never make a big deal about this because it's the least I can do to repay for his help. However, he spares no opportunity whatsoever to take shots at my lack of worthwhile skills. He'll say, often in front of family and friends, that I'm not a real man or that I'd be useless in an emergency, that sort of thing. Because he does a lot of stuff that I generally suck at, I bite my tongue and I don't say anything to him. This week changed that. We bought my daughter this massive climbing frame and swing set for her birthday. My wife and I were able to assemble most of it, but the last few bits, as well as anchoring it into the ground, were giving us issues. My brother happened to stop by to visit, so he helped, but my wife also called father-in-law to come and help. We got the job done, but again, the commentary continued, which was especially insulting considering my brother was here. Yesterday, we were out visiting him. I was there, as was my wife, his wife, and my wife's brother and his wife. He asked me if I could take a look at his laptop, as he'd had some sort of a virus. When I fired it up, it was one of those ransomware programs. Camera was showing the webcam feed on a fake police website. I was able to get his computer somewhat back to normal after a while, which took longer than he would have liked according to his comments. While I was bringing it back, he kept badgering me about what had caused the virus. Looking through his internet history revealed that he had been looking at a lot of stuff that he wouldn't want anyone to know about. It was out of my mouth before I had even finished processing the thought. Loads of these websites that you've been looking at have given you viruses and dodgy stuff. I'll get you a membership for my Norton account. You could have cut the tension with a knife. His wife looked super angry and sister-in-law stifled a laugh. We left shortly after that, but on the way out, we heard the two of them arguing. My wife gave me both barrels in the car, but I said he's always giving me hassle and I keep my mouth shut. Things have been frosty ever since, and I wonder if I went too far. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but your wife and her dad are. If someone in my family was speaking to my husband like that, I would have shut that crap down immediately. They can treat you with respect or they can buzz off. You and your wife need to have a talk, then establish boundaries with her parents. I seriously can't stop laughing. Well, Dad, what did we learn today? He asked, he badgered you to tell him what caused the problem. You did so. Could you have done it better? Yeah. You could have offered to teach him how to clean his browser history. But did you do anything wrong? Not a bit. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Am I the jerk for asking for a tip back at a restaurant? This one's been keeping me up all night. I, 24 female, and my boyfriend, 24 male, like most people, appreciate a good bubble tea. A week ago, we went out and grabbed lunch and tea at a bubble tea place in our town. The restaurant is not a full-service restaurant, but it is one of those places where you order at the front and they yell out your number when it's ready. I always thought the rule was that you tip in sit-down restaurants where you're being served, but not in places where you grab something at the counter, unless you leave a little change for a tip jar. In sit-down restaurants, I'm a stickler for always tipping at least 20%. So we ordered, and the woman behind the register told us the total. about $35 for 2 meals and drinks, a bit of a special splurge for us student loanees. I put my credit card into the card reader and then took my hands off and waited for the usual directions to pop up again, without touching the screen. They all came up as usual, 15%, 20%, 22, or 25. But then, before I could click skip or touch the machine at all, the button for 20% lit up orange and automatically charged me a $7 service tip. The woman at the register immediately printed and handed me the receipt for $42. Flustered, and in the heat of the moment, I awkwardly explained that the price was wrong, that I hadn't selected the tip, and that the machine had randomly added it on. The woman behind the register looked at me with a blank stare and said, "So, do you want me to take off the tip?" I said yes, please. The woman had to call over a manager who also gave me a blank stare and confirmed that I wanted a refund for my tip. As they were printing off a special receipt in silence, I wanted to melt into a puddle on the floor. The manager handed me the tip refund receipt without saying anything, and I said an awkward, "Thanks," before scurrying off to the side to wait for the food. As we waited, my boyfriend made a joke about hoping the staff didn't do anything gross to our food after what had just happened. I asked him if what I had done was horribly awkward, and he said, "Well, yeah, I wouldn't have asked for the tip back." I told my family about what I did, and my dad disagreed. He said the card reader was clearly broken or rigged, and wondered if the rigging could have been intentional. My mom thinks that's unlikely. My sister said that next time, you should just pay the $7. It's not worth it. Honestly, I agree with my sister at this point. I'd absolutely pay the extra $7 just to avoid that incredibly awkward situation. But I have to ask Reddit, am I the jerk? Not the jerk for asking for the tip back, because that sounds like some shady stuff. However, you should really be planning to tip at least 15% on takeout orders at any establishment. Why? Because the owner is offsetting their labor costs with your tips. The only reason your order isn't more expensive is because they're expecting you to subsidize their employees' wages. And for any of those "I reject tipping culture" people, yeah, it's awful, but you're not changing the culture by not tipping, you're just passing the hit onto the person making $2.13 an hour. You're the jerk. In case you're wondering, they totally did stuff to your food. I've worked in the restaurant industry for almost 10 years, and everywhere I've ever worked, if we had someone pull some crap like this, you don't even want to know what we would have done to their food. If you can afford to go out to eat, you can afford to tip, takeout or not. If you seriously can't afford a $7 tip, just stick to Dollar General hot dogs. You're the jerk. Something tells me you've never worked in the food industry before. It's always the people who have never worked in the industry that feel entitled to great service but refuse to leave a tip. Takeout still requires so much to go on behind the scenes in order for you to get your food. The least you could do is leave a small tip for the people who work there. I guarantee you that everyone working there that day talked about you for the rest of their shift. I know I would have. Well, what do you think? Is Opie a jerk for asking for the tip refunded or not? Please let us know. After reading so many stories similar to this one, I kind of just avoid restaurants like the plague. Business class upgrade, if there is room. I used to work at a regional airline. The jet we used for our flight to the big city had 6 business class seats. The business class service was really good for a 2-hour flight. It included a full bar service, a hot meal, warmed bread basket, followed by a trolley with dessert and signature coffee. The good old days. One of our regular travels was a local business owner who was just a slimy businessman. He had a reputation for making a lot of money from some pretty shady deals over the years. We would roll our eyes when we saw him coming to the check-in counter because he would always name drop and ask for special treatment. He always used the business class check-in line even though he was usually in economy. He didn't have frequent flyer status, but he was buddies with one of the airline executives and always let us know this fact when he checked in by making sure to tell us that he was good friends with Vice President Karen. He would always ask for free upgrades, extra baggage, not charging a change fee, last-minute discounts, etc. If he didn't get what he wanted, he immediately called VP Karen, who would usually then call us and approve whatever it was that he wanted. So one day, Jerk checks in for his flight to the big city and of course name drops and asks for a free upgrade to business class because "I'm friends with VP Karen and they said it would be okay." He was traveling on a discounted ticket that was not eligible for upgrade, even if he did have an upgrade coupon, which he didn't. I informed him that he was not eligible for any upgrades on this ticket and gave him his boarding pass and sent him on his way. Of course, he flips open his cell phone and immediately calls VP Karen. Within 2 minutes, the phone at the check-in desk rings and it's VP Karen authorizing me to override the policy to upgrade Jerk to business class with no upgrade coupon required, if there's room. The flight that day wasn't that busy and only one person booked in business class, leaving 5 open seats. I was really irritated, but I begrudgingly put Jerk on the upgrade list anyways. He returned to the check-in counter and picked up his standby boarding card and gave me that smug, "Told you so" look. But then what VP Karen said clicked with me, if there's room. The next passenger I checked in was a super nice lady, big smile, friendly, please and thank you. "Oh, thank you so much for checking my bags to my connecting flight. That's so nice of you." I was taking my time and we were chatting a bit since it wasn't that busy. She was a teacher going on a trip to see her family, and it was her first visit with them in over a year and was going to meet her new nephew for the first time. She was overjoyed just to have the time off to travel. I typed in a few things into the computer to make it look like I was checking something about her connecting flights and then said, "Oh, you've been selected today to receive a free upgrade to business class." She was shocked. "I've never flown business class in my life. This is so amazing." At that time, we were rarely questioned if we upgraded someone without a certificate. Over the next 20 minutes, I found excuses to upgrade 4 other passengers, one who worked for one of our top corporate accounts, one who was legitimately a frequent flyer, can't remember the other reasons. But by the time I went to board the flight, I had to tell Jerk that I was sorry, but business class was full and I couldn't offer him an upgrade today. The teacher I upgraded profusely thanked me again when she boarded with the rest of the business class passengers. Little did she know that it really made my day also. My fiance let my snake loose outside, so I kicked her out. I, 27 male, have always been an animal lover. I love snakes, tarantulas, scorpions, lizards, geckos, dogs, and cats. When I moved out of my parents' house and into my townhome, I decided to adopt a ball python. She is very docile and loves to be held. I set her tank up in one of the rooms downstairs. When my fiance, 28 female, and I decided that we were ready to move in together, I slowly introduced her to the snake. She thought the snake was really cool and even held her a few times. A few months ago, her friends came over, and ever since, she's been asking me to find a new home for the snake. I had to travel to another state for work and trusted her to take care of the snake. I was gone for a week, and when I came back, I saw the tank completely gone. I searched all over the house, and it was nowhere to be found. I went outside and checked the wooded area behind the townhome and found the tank. The tank was open and no sign of the snake. When my fiance got home, I showed her the tank and told her to go pack a suitcase and to find another place to stay. Her defense was that I was giving the snake too much attention. Fiance is currently staying with her parents, and they think that I'm overreacting over an animal. Fiance is upset that I won't talk to her or accept her apology. Am I the jerk for kicking my fiance out of the house for letting my snake loose outside? It's illegal to turn animals loose like that in the wild. Not the jerk. Your fiance is messed up. Agreed. The snake very well might not live due to the fact that it's used to being a pet and not used to being outside. This would be like letting a dog run free. OP should break off the engagement. I almost always consider this sub's recommendations to end marriages, break off engagements, go no contact, etc. to be heavy-handed. But this one is messed up on so many levels. The casual animal mistreatment, the fact that she did this to something she knew you love, the jealousy towards a pet, the secret betrayal, and not to mention her family backing her up that all of this is no big deal. OP, your life will be horrible if you marry this messed up person and her messed up family. Not the jerk. I think a lot of the breakup recommendations are good, to be honest. My perspective is, if it comes to the point where they are asking anonymous strangers for their opinions about relationships, then there's probably a lot more issues going on too, meaning the relationship probably won't last. Am I the jerk for serving my brother-in-law's dinner using toy utensils? I, male 17, moved in with my sister after my parents kicked me out. Another story. They said I'll have to temporarily stay here until I get back to normal, which I don't think I will. But anyways, so I moved in with my sister and her husband about a month ago. FYI, she does everything around the house. I started helping here and there, as well as looking after a 2-year-old niece, and now she's 6 months pregnant. Brother-in-law does nothing because he's the breadwinner, as he claims, but in my opinion, he's taken it a bit too far. Example, he'd tell her to start his laundry once he takes it off, put dinner on the table once he's home, get the shower ready, and so on. They fight a lot because my sister is exhausted and burnt out. I usually put my headphones on and mind my own business, but 2 nights ago there was a lot of commotion once he came home, so I went to see what the issue was. Turns out, brother-in-law was complaining about dinner and my sister was too exhausted to get up. I mean, the dinner was already cooked, but he wanted her to put it on a plate for him on the table. I told my sister I'd do it, but instead of using their kitchen utensils, I used my niece's toy utensils, like a toy cup, toy plate, toy fork, and a tiny napkin. And I put the food on the toy plate and the drink in the cup while brother-in-law was in the shower. He then came into the kitchen and sat down and stared at the plate for a few seconds. He then looked at me and asked what the heck this was and whether I was joking. I told him if he wanted to act like a helpless child, then he might as well get treated like one. He began yelling and my sister came inside. He then threw the napkin and stormed off upon saying that I disrespected him and that he'll let my parents know about what I did. My sister saw what I had done and started laughing. I went into my room, but the argument didn't stop. Now he's expecting an apology from me for meddling in his marriage and pulling this crappy stunt on him. I could be the jerk for this, but I was just so mad for my sister and also sick and tired of being sick and tired of the nightly fighting over dinner. Okay, so this is really funny, and he totally had it coming, but we all know you should have stayed way out of this. I get that you were trying to stick up for your sister, who deserves that. Please accept my softest everyone sucks here. You might have actually made them fight more. People like your brother-in-law often take these things out on people like your sister. Yeah, I mean, I agree that while it was definitely well-deserved, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. For OP, since he needs to make sure he still has a place to live, and for the sister for the reasons you said. Although from the post, it does sound like the sister also found it funny and wasn't mad at him for doing that. Who knows, maybe sister is also reconsidering staying married to this jerk. So yeah, agreed with the very soft everyone sucks here. Not the jerk, but honestly, OP, in this situation, it might be better to keep your head low and stop antagonizing him. It sounds like you're surrounded by a really bad situation, but antagonizing this monster is going to affect your sister more than it affects you. You're a guest in their home. If she needs help, you help her. Ignore him at best. You don't have to be a peacekeeper, but don't do the opposite. Everyone sucks here. But what you did was hilarious, and he had it coming. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.